Hi, I'm Ethan Allen, your host of Likeable Science, and we're going to explore the connections between science and people's lives. Today we're going to look at a really interesting new area. It's an up-and-coming topic of coding and programming. And we have a couple of gentlemen here from the DevLeague, Russell Cheng and Jason Sewell, sorry, I apologize. And they are running DevLeague, which is really essentially the one and only, I guess, boot camp for serious programmers. So go ahead and maybe give us a quick overview of what DevLeague does.
Essentially what DevLeague does is we're Hawaii's first coding boot camp. We take people who are interested and motivated to become web software developers, and we do that in 12 weeks. And after they graduate, we bring the employers to the graduates.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all about training the next generation of programmers and getting them jobs. It's really as simple as that. It's all about workforce development and getting people into higher paying careers at a faster pace.
Right. Now, as recent as a few years ago, it would have been thought that programming was a sort of a specialized sort of niche profession with a relatively small workforce who dedicate themselves to doing this, but no real need for lots and lots of people to be doing it. But that whole perception seems to be changing. There's a whole belief system now, in education at least, that coding should well become part of sort of a core curriculum for kids, and all kids should learn to code because it's going to become sort of the communication vehicle of the 21st century. So this is sort of the same kind of thing except for adults?
Well, absolutely. I think it is the language of the 21st century. I mean, I think it's almost a default. 7 years ago, who would have imagined that we'd have a smartphone, right? And all of a sudden, everyone has one in their pocket, and everyone has a tablet and stuff, right? But we've been involved in the software industry for quite some time. I mean, Jason's been a programmer for what, like 12-something years now and stuff. I started back I don't want to date myself, but a really long time ago, and I used to work at Microsoft as well too.
Right. So it's been intriguing then to watch how programming has sort of spread out, and again, it's getting into more and more and more aspects of more people's lives. Kids are developing apps now to put on phones. Every business now not only needs a website, but needs social media presence, needs to figure out how to make themselves interactive with sort of the current technology, how to attract their loyal customers and fans, keep them interacting with them. So it's just sort of expanded tremendously in terms of the needs for this kind of stuff, right?
Our entire world's being driven by software, and not only in terms of the business that the existing business that functions around it, but we also have a lot of room for improvement and growth in the world around us, and really that's kind of a big part of what we try to promote, and especially like you said at the younger level when we're working with kids and even the adults, is we promote the same thing, is that we're not just there's so much that you can do with these skills. It's not about just kind of making apps, but figure out how to impact the world around you, and there's a ton of potential for we have a lot of problems kind of in the world around us, whether I mean, you name it. There's just, and technology and engineering is kind of in our opinion, I think the primary vehicles for solving a lot of the problems that we're going to deal with in our lifetimes, that our children are going to deal with in their lifetimes. And so we really actually promote. I mean, if somebody wants to go, build an app, and for kids, like, they like building games, right, and stuff like that. But yeah, we definitely want to, promote that really it's so much more impactful. What you can do with the skill set, and especially here in Hawaii. I mean, we have our own challenges here as well. So.
Right. I mean, I was talking with somebody some months ago here about the Hea fish pond on the North Shore. And they then went off and built essentially an app to allow visitors to do a self-guided tour, to follow the data collection, to look at current conditions in the pond, to do all this kind of stuff. So it's a beautiful blending of a very traditional Hawaiian practice with current technology that, again, is all mediated through essentially coding or programming.
Well, but here's the thing that's really interesting, right? I mean, I think how much of this is really taught in schools?
Well, that's very, very little formally.
At the elementary school, at the primary school, at the middle school, at the high school, or even at the colleges. Right. And yet we all know that software is eating the world, and yet we also know that, and as you rightly described, how everyone's using technology in a very, a very expansive way. But how much of it's really being taught to people in terms of digital literacy,
right,
and technical literacy?
Yes, and we all should become digitally, technologically fluent, not just sort of literate, but I mean, really able to use the technologies in a productive, creative way.
Versus consumers, right?
Exactly.
That's the key.
Right, and so we for the younger set, the students, right? We're essentially promoting technical literacy, right? We're teaching technical literacy to children, from the middle school to the high school level, and for the adults, it's really professional development. Right. For the ones that didn't quite have it in their college degrees or came out and they worked for a little while, and they decided that something went on, something's going on in their career, or they want to better themselves, and where do they turn to? You can either go back to school, or you can try to learn online, which we think is great. But at the end of the day, having somebody next to you, being the mentoring you and working with you in a classroom setting, we think is even more powerful.
Sure. The kind of very focused, very intensive learning that you're promoting, where it's 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. That kind of immersion learning can just really transform people's lives, get them thinking on a whole new level, where they're beginning to sort of live, breathe, and eat coding, right, for a prolonged period, until it really becomes sort of second nature for them to think in those terms, right?
Well, that's exactly what.
Well, it's a human element too. I mean, we focus on the coding and what they come out with that, but really, a large part of what it comes out with it too is that you're actually in that environment with other people, being more of a mentor kind of model as well, and being in an environment with your peers. That is actually, that is the real world around us, is that we have to interact with, other people and work with other people, and learn. Not only, we have to teach other people, and we ourselves have to learn from other people as well. So I mean, there's, it's so much, everything we talk about is so much in this digital space, but there really is so much human element and value that comes out of really people learning together and people pulling these skills together. And again, when you kind of talk about the impact of what these skills kind of really impact, the world around us is we do live in a physical world, and with human interaction, and so that's kind of the other part of it, is that people grow as people and as team, as collaborators and team members, and the power of what people can do together is much greater than what people can do alone.
Well, yeah, if you're also sort of teaching those so-called soft skills of the teamwork, that's a very powerful component then too, because that's increasingly fewer and fewer of our jobs are sort of single-person jobs. Everyone sort of has their hands linked to everyone else, and we're all contributing to the same kinds of products and processes, and dependent upon others in our workplace, and they're dependent upon us. So
absolutely, I think part of what DevLeague does, even in the 12-week course, right? I mean, we teach them coding, we teach them collaboration, and then of course onboarding. At the end of the day, people are working in project teams. People do need to work in software. I mean, very few software, very much not. It's not so much written by one person doing it by themselves. It's really in a team environment, and they need to constantly ship that product and ship that out, get it out to people. But yeah, just working and collaborating with people, you'd be surprised how little that is taught in schools as well too. Right. And then of course, even how to find a career, find a job, just get started, and just get your feet wet. Surprisingly, it's not even taught.
Right. A lot of schools still are very much stuck in the sort of the 19th century model of education, of very much an assembly line education. Every student is treated pretty much the same. Each student is responsible solely for their own work.
We were products of that, right?
Exactly.
What's kind of funny is actually, I had a conversation recently about something like that, whereas a friend of mine that had been in school and actually was telling the story about a classmate of theirs that actually got reprimanded, and I think had to actually drop a class because they worked together with somebody, and so really they were the professor or whoever was, I'm sure it was the professor, was really looking at it from a plagiarism point of view, and really wanting them to be in a silo and learn alone, whereas really what they did in coming together and sharing knowledge and collaborating on how to find a solution is is what should be, that is the valuable takeaway from an environment like that, and not, and how much an individual can memorize out of a book. I mean,
exactly. We're going to have to take a short break here. You're on Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen. With me today from DevLeague are Russell Cheng and Jason Sewell. And we're going to dig into more in depth about what DevLeague does and how I do it when we come back.
Aloha, my name is Willow Chang Elion, and I host a show called The Art of Life. We air live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. And what we do is basically we focus on individuals who create a unique sense of place for Hawaii. These are movers and shakers, artists, innovators. They are also traditionalists. They're all involved in the archival process, and they make this place a unique place, one that makes Hawaii a richer place to be. I hope you do join us, and certainly tell your friends about the show, whether they live here or they live abroad. It's a way to give back to our community. We're keeping
my
it
laptop.
I dragged them along to
You're
this
back
today.
here on Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen. We're talking about coding today with Russell and Jason from DevLeague. And I want to get a little more, give our audience a little better sense about sort of what DevLeague really does. We've talked about it being a boot camp. We've talked about it being an intensive 12-week, sort of 6 days a week, morning to night kind of experience. But it might be helpful to sort of walk through what a student might experience in those 12 weeks. Sort of how would they sort of go week by week, as it were? What would they accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, what they accomplish, I mean, they come away with really, higher in-demand skill set of really what modern tech companies are looking for in employees that can come in and really hit the ground running from day one, with the right languages and the right tools, and again, going back to the soft skills, and really not having to hire somebody and then train them for another 6 months to, take theory to really teach them the tools and the languages that they actually use in practice. So we kind of fill that gap. What they actually experience through that is a lot of highs and lows. It's not easy, and to kind of take on that much information and that much learning, and especially it's not an environment that people are used to learning like that. So you're putting people in a foreign environment and asking quite a lot of them. But generally, the people we have are really putting it on themselves in terms of taking a lot of pride and ownership and wanting to take a new direction in life. And so they have their own self-motivation. We really facilitate them, acting on that motivation. I mean, they've made the choice. We try to do as much as possible. A lot of reward systems is that we're constantly building, and I mean that's what we love to do. Mm-hmm. That's what people are coming to us learning how to do, is building stuff and wanting to see output. So we consistently reinforce that of let's teach something a little bit, so we don't lecture all day and expect you to memorize things. We kind of teach a little bit, and then it's like, okay, now let's take that and build something in it. And you're constantly getting not only that rapid kind of reward feedback cycle, but also it cements learning to a deeper level, is because, again, you're not drawing from memory of like, okay, I remember these words that somebody said to me. I remember when I actually did this, and I remember my hands being, on the keyboard, and I remember this, grueling process. I remember when the light bulb flipped, and it's just such a more valuable and kind of concrete way to learn.
Right, and it's very compatible with sort of what neuroscience is telling us these days about how the brain really learns. The brain really is equipped to learn sort of on the fly, and not to sort of sit in a classroom, right? That's not what our brains evolved to do. Our brains evolved for us to be out in the wild, watching for predators, looking for food, right. Keeping track of our fellow humans, right. Looking for potential mates, all these different kinds of multitasking, and being able to switch very rapidly between those things. Right. So, yeah, being able to do that kind of like referencing back, oh yes, I heard this recently, that connects with what I just practiced last night, that ties back in the project I was doing last week, so it keeps reinforcing and makes for very, very powerful learning.
Right.
Excellent. Right. Super. So it does sound like a grueling process. Do many of your students drop out or shift to a part-time status after a week or two, or?
No, we've actually we have had people drop it, but it's been very few in terms of our total numbers. So we're actually very supportive. we want to see people succeed,
Sure.
and it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that the amount of extra care and attention that we give people really outside of kind of what is promised and kind of what other boot camps do is that we really, for better or worse, establish relationships with people and really want them to succeed, and that genuinely keeps them going, gets them through the hard times. Really, the only people that have dropped is, I think, people that kind of underestimated their desire to actually want to do it in the first place, and so for the people that really are passionate about it and want to do it, they'll get through it. We'll help them through it, and even the people that haven't been successful, again, the very few. We kind of learn from those experiences too.
Sure.
So.
And your website seems to indicate that virtually everyone, at least who goes through your program, ends up getting a good position within a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, so far, the first cohort that we graduated had 5 students in it, and it was our first one. 3 of them got jobs here in Hawaii, and 2 of them got jobs on the mainland.
Excellent.
And all of them, were not software developers when they first came into the program, and 12 weeks later they graduated and they were software developers, and they got jobs as web software developers. It's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah, it's great if you can help people make that kind of transition in their careers.
We just recently graduated our second cohort just on November 1st, and one of the graduates did land a job a month before he even graduated. In a fairly large company that's based on the mainland but has a branch out here. It's with Uber. And again, he didn't have any programming skills in the beginning part when he first came into our part-time 26-week program.
Okay.
So
you do have that option that people don't have to do it quite so intensively. They can spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, so we have a part-time for not everybody can afford to not work.
Yeah.
So we started off the full-time based on a lot of the feedback we got here from people here on the ground that were interested, that really just could not do it, but really had we'd say the attitude and the aptitude to be successful with it. So that was something we learned when we started and kind of adapted to that and created a part-time program to really offer the same takeaway, but on a more accommodating schedule for people that have situations in life that to respond to them and still include them, or to have the same ability. It just takes a little bit longer.
Excellent, excellent. And then you also you said some work with kids too. So you sort of started this, what you call a junior DevLeague for middle school kids, where you sort of pick up.
So this whole manifestation started because Jason and I were both parents. We have kids as well, and early in the summer, we know there's going to be a summer gap, right? So it was like June 2nd to June 6th, that gap between school and then summer school starts. And my son had asked about getting a new laptop, and we said, you don't need a new laptop. And it turns out he has all these mods on his computer for Minecraft. And then well, how many mods do you have? 110 mods on your computer. That's crazy. That's why it's laggy. Well, then you can play the game, but can you make one? And it's just started from there. And so Jason's smart enough to go and put something on the website, and it has a button in there, and there's not too much behind it. And we're thinking, all right, let's go test this out. People just started, parents who came for the adult courses were looking at the website, and then all of a sudden they just started hitting the button again and again. We want to teach our kids code, and we want to teach the Minecraft course. We actually need to do something about this and build a course together. We put that together, and we had our first Minecraft course to teach JavaScript coding within the program. And it's a program that every kid who's between 8 years old and 14 years old, I should say, already knows how to play.
Wow.
But what we did was we used it almost like a Trojan horse to teach them some coding, and to increase the functionality in the game, and then they can create their own worlds and create their own game.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did, like me and like all my friends, all my peers, that I think all of us were drawn to programming initially because we all played video games growing up, and we all wanted to grow up and make video games or live in a game like Tron or something like that. So that was kind of the, that was our appeal to how we kind of started getting into it. So we really just kind of took that same train of thought and said, well, now that we have the ability to, in the language that we teach to adults that's valuable for adults to get jobs, we can use that same language and use it in a platform that's appealing to, you know, a younger generation and really kind of draw on their interest of wanting to enhance the game that they love and learn how to play video games, and then at some point later in life, you know, as their priorities shift, they have these skills that are also portable to you know, adult you know, careers.
Absolutely. Indeed, if kids learn these skills at younger and younger ages, one suspects they are going to become more fluent, basically, and they'll be sort of integrated in their brains in a sense more seamlessly.
Yeah. And that's
really
one of the key values of it. It's not the programming so much, is that you're teaching them at a young age to problem solve.
Right.
And to think of how they can change things around them through, you know, and giving them the tools to do that. And again, going back to what we said earlier, teaching them to be producers versus consumers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, stop just kind of consuming the video games and think about how you can make them, or think about how you could, you know, kind of change things around you to your benefit, and look at the world of I don't like this, how can I make this better?
Right.
Or how can I change this? You know?
So many people have now taken the basic smartphones and developed thousands of different things. These smartphones now can be used in myriad different health applications, monitoring all kinds of your bodily systems, to help you track all sorts of aspects of your health that were never envisioned initially when the smartphones first came out.
And it's going to take more software developers to
exactly.
do all of that.
Yeah.
And you know, as the children, you know, as they grow up, they're digital natives, right?
Right.
And so for the people that are digital natives, we want to provide, you know, training for them. And again, there's a gap at what we see in schools that are happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of traditional schools where it's not being taught. I mean, we had a ninth grader who took our class. You know, he's from Kamehameha schools. And he called us and he hustled us for an internship after he took the class. And you know, I had the benefit of watching Jason sit next to him for almost about a month, and it was amazing, the transformation. Now, he's already a very smart kid, but he just went even further and further with it.
I have to give credit to John. Our instructor John actually gave him much more mentorship than I did. I helped out, and I'm happy to see him go where he did. But yeah, it's you see what these kids have at a young age, what they're capable of when they have an interest in it, and really that was the key, is just feeding them, you know, enabling them, and again, it's mentorship. Again, everything we do, it's all about just sharing knowledge that we have kind of amassed over the years and doing what we do.
But it's stunning to watch about how kids will do that. There are kids who just basically aren't going to succeed well in a traditional school setting, but given a different kind of setting can really take leadership and really show their potential. We saw this years ago when I worked at the Museum of Science and Industry. You could see kids would come in school groups and they'd be the last ones sort of dragging on in behind the rest of the school group, the class cut-ups. And sometimes they would then sort of step up and become the leaders of the class group in the museum. And when all the sort of the good students, you know, were too afraid to push the buttons or operate the machines, and these kids could run around and really show that this was an environment that stimulated them, and you know, same kind of thing you're talking about here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've
kind of came through
that.
No,
it's funny. I mean, that you mentioned that. I mean, we haven't really had a conversation, but basically, our core team is a lot of those people of you know, it's definitely our personal background.
You get the distraction of the beach over here, right? You get distraction of something else somewhere else.
I mean, like I was never a good student. And this was one of the first things ever in my life, and I wasn't exposed to it until my 20s, where I really was drawn to any kind of education and wanting to learn more. I just had never, it just never happened before, and I was always more interested in just kind of goofing off, and so yeah, and you know, we have, like I said, a lot of our core team members are those same people, and that's why it's so valuable to us, is because really we were not supposed to go where we went. You know, based on early in life, you know, we were kind of tagged, you know, like you said, like they're just not going to be successful because they can't fall in line or whatever. And we kind of stumbled across this thing that actually we gravitated towards, and it actually fit our kind of mental model based on our experience. And so, you know, and again, going back to problem solvers, is I think, you know, when you talk about who can be good problem solvers, I mean, generally people that have had problems are, you know, have had to kind of come up with solutions. And that's a lot of times when people have, you know, that have kind of just had things handed to them, and education's kind of been an easy thing, and as long as they kind of just fell in line, things were easy, right? And then they get into the real world where, like, nobody's going to hand you anything, right? And you got to work hard for it. And so, you know.
Well, super. We're going to continue this here in just another moment, but we're going to take another break first. You're here on Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen. With me today are Jason and Russell from DevLeague, and we'll be back to delve into DevLeague a little more.
Ted Ralston, folks, host of our show at ThinkTech Hawaii called Where the Road Leads, where we talk about technology influencing the future of Hawaii. Technology, of course, is the art of solving problems. We always bring in interesting and informed guests who can see from different perspectives and different points of view how that future might unfold and how technology can assist us in getting there. So once again, join us 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Fridays. Ted Ralston, your host. And please, if you have ideas that you'd like us to address on this show, or folks who you think should be on it, let us know.
Take a question from Remy now.
And we're back here on Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen. With me today in the ThinkTech studios are Russell and Jason from DevLeague, founder and instructors at DevLeague. And we've been talking about how DevLeague really runs a tremendously valuable and unique boot camp service, basically helping people transform their lives by learning all about coding and becoming professional coders, basically professional programmers, and gaining huge sets of broadly applicable skills in the process. So this obviously you've done this for about a year now, right? And so you must have faced some serious challenges in pulling this whole thing together, getting it started, getting your first groups of students together.
You know, starting up, this is my 7th startup company, so
Wow.
starting up a company is not that hard to do. It's very hard to start up a company that will attract the right type of people. You know, essentially you're trying to solve a pain point, right, in the beginning part. You want to find the pain point that people want to pay for as well. And so just getting people to know what we're doing in DevLeague, what we're trying to do, it certainly it's always been a challenge, right? You have to get traditional media, we have to get onto programs like this. The default is to go to college and it's go to university and to take a computer science program or what have you. The default is not to think of a boot camp, 12 weeks that is going to teach you coding and then bring the careers to you, right? So it's always a challenge, and we've been able to overcome that, but it's still again something we work really hard at.
And I understand you've recently you're making financial help available to your students, right? You're offering them better options and more ways to lessen that impact on them.
Yeah, we recognize that tuition, college costs are spiraling, right? I mean, I think we all agree that college is great. I think we all agree that college tuition really has gotten away from itself, or it really sucks, right? And what we're trying to do is we've always been very cognizant of that, and we've tried to make a lot of options for people to do this. As a for-profit, a private company, we take cash, check, and charge, of course. We do offer a scholarship. We did offer what we call the DevLeague Elevate Scholarship Fund, where we did it for people who are in need, and of course for female hackers as well too, for a female coder to promote diversity. We have a payment plan set up, but just yesterday, we announced a climb credit, a climb deal where the students can put a very low down payment for their school, for their tuition, and then of course Climb can finance that for up to 90%. So we've taken away the hurdle of really getting the upfront money to pay for tuition. We do also work with the Wahoo Work Links, a city-run program with federal funding that helps people who are in transition in terms of employment. So yeah, we've always been offering those in the very beginning. We worked really hard to put those together. When we speak to other boot camps on the mainland, some of our peers, they don't have a lot of these programs. We think it's we're very proud to make it affordable for people and within reach for people here in Hawaii.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely critical. Given particularly, I suspect we serve a more diverse audience, basically, and you're going to get people from probably broader ranges of backgrounds in your program, and so that their needs are probably, again, broader and deeper than might be in other places, Silicon Valley, for instance. So that's intriguing to get that. So what's been your sort of your high points then, if along your challenges that you faced?
Oh wow.
People getting jobs. I mean,
Yeah,
that's an
that's-
easy
that's
one.
the-
Like,
yeah, that's
I
the-
don't even know to think about. I mean, that's
The outcomes.
yeah, that's what it's all about, and really seeing the emotion and you know, especially people that have kind of jumped in with us early and been the early adopters. They knew that they were taking a risk and that we were a young company and this is kind of a new model. They believed in us and but you never know. I mean, that's a risk that they were willing to take, but to then see that risk pay off and see how how happy they were to really have kind of gotten to it's the starting line of their career, but it was kind of the ending, the finish line of the uncertainty of the gamble that they were taking to really kind of. But again, it comes down to they took ownership over their position in life and did something about it, and when we are able to help them see the benefit of taking that initiative, that's just uncomparable.
Super rewarding.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, got to be, absolutely, got to be a very powerful reward for you guys as well as for them.
Yeah.
So that's
Especially since they came from a lot of diverse backgrounds, right? I mean, some of them were not working, some of them working as waiters, some of them had a computer science degree, and still wasn't working because couldn't find an interesting job for him. And at the end of the day, all of them got jobs as web software developers, and they got to choose where they wanted to go. They had multiple interviews, they had multiple offers.
Excellent.
And in fact, at the end part, one of them even had a bidding war, and it was really gratifying to see that because they didn't start off like that.
Yeah.
And we, DevLeague, we enabled some part of that, but again, they were very motivated, and they had the aptitude and the attitude to really better themselves. As Jason was saying, that's we can't teach that.
Yeah.
Right.
And what we're really dealing with right now is, we're still fighting that battle of getting people to kind of, take the plunge with us. But what we're actually dealing with now is because of the output that we've had already and people that are familiar with the program, is that now we're actually getting more demand than we have supply for already. Is that people are asking, when are you guys going to have more graduates? Our recent class of graduated only had four graduates. And that's just, not enough.
And one of them got picked up already
and
before he
there
even
was only-
graduated.
and then another one had plans already. So really, out of there was only 2 people even available from the most recent class. And so, for people that are kind of on the fence, that's something that probably isn't as obvious because you just don't. You don't see that demand out there as much just with the environment that we're in. But
Right. So these are you're saying these potential employers are coming to you saying, hey, give me
Yeah.
more. I want more of your students now.
Yeah, we don't have enough to send out
We
right now.
have a DevLeague employer network, and there's about 30 or so companies listed inside. You can see it on our website
Right.
and everything. But just before this cohort started graduating, there's been about 4 or 5 companies that jumped the gun and came out and says, hey, look, we want to take a look at your resumes already now. Send it to us early. And it's gratifying to have that. But at the end of the day, we still have to have the students to do that. Jason, we always want to point out one of the things that we have in our current 3rd cohort right now is there's more females than there's males.
Excellent. Because yes, women, of course, are really appallingly underrepresented in the computer science field. So it's wonderful that you've been able to attract women into your cohort there.
Our current cohort has 8 people, 5 females, 3 females, and then or 3 males. And there was actually it was supposed to be 6, and then at the last minute, one of them couldn't attend. But that's a pretty healthy ratio, right? And it's kind of funny when we actually were talking on the way in this morning about some of our demographic numbers we see through like social media channels still being primarily male dominated, who's taking an interest, but the people right now that we've seen over the last 6 months that are actually committing and taking that initiative that we talked about is predominantly female right now. And then even in terms of diversity as an industry as a whole, right? I mean, you always hear about lack of diversity, and here we are in Hawaii with just extreme, diversity, ethnic diversity, and now we have higher numbers of females enrolled right now. So it's like it's cool to see. I don't know where it's going to go, but I mean we're definitely not living our everyday lives in the same atmosphere that you hear about in the tech industry at large.
No, that's good. And you guys are helping essentially solve sort of an industry-wide problem. Then you're at least addressing this in your own way and moving the industry forward in that sense. So that's super.
You know, here's another tidbit of information I think that, you know, it's not so common. We're starting to get national exposure as well too, because they're starting to have applicants come in from the mainland as well who want to move here. So in our current cohort, I mean, in the fourth cohort that we're starting up in January 12th, people are applying from the mainland as well too. They're willing to move here to Hawaii.
Wow.
To learn to code in paradise, right?
Wow.
And that's gratifying at the same time, because we're starting to get that exposure, and people are starting to recognize, you know, what we're doing on a national stage as opposed to just purely here in Hawaii.
That's excellent.
Right? And you know, here we can attract them to our islands.
Yeah. No, that's super. If you can get, it's a measure again of your success and the quality of your outputs basically, and your selective process and what you've done with your initial cohorts. You've got that kind of thing.
There's another group that we're very interested in as well too. That's really the designers, yeah, and people who are in the creative industries. The people who are creative directors, or, you know, designers, and people who can create stuff and build, you know, just combining their skill set, their domain knowledge in one area and combining it with coding, generally move to the front of the line in terms of careers and jobs that are available to them, because they have their domain knowledge of design, and they're combining it with the coding side of it, and they're what we call the purple unicorns.
Sure, right. You know, if they've got a skill set that allows them to already create aesthetically appealing products or whatever,
Yes.
and then they can back that up with some really fancy coding background.
Gamers as well too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, on that note, I mean, that's kind of another, I think, challenge that we've kind of been working towards is you know, the challenge of perception of kind of what programmers historically have been seen as, and kind of what you were touching on a little bit earlier, versus really the modern landscape of kind of what software developers are today. And now, you know, there is so much creativity happening, and the landscape has changed so much that the tools are so much powerful that you can focus on that creative aspect more, and not focus so much on, you know, I don't write algorithms all day every day. You know, I build products. You know, and so. Yeah,
that's true. And as you say, it harks back to how we really began this conversation about this sort of amazing expansion and sort of integration of coding and programming into every aspect of our lives. And so much that literally, as you sort of say, it's changed the rules sort of what we think of about programming, how we think it gets used, how and where it can be used, sort of in what realms and what roles. Yeah.
But see, that brings us back to, again, what we're trying to solve here, right? There's still a lot of this that's not being taught at the schools, right. And then, you know, you can learn online, you can learn through books, you can learn through friends, you can learn through copying on, you know, other websites and stuff. But at the end of the day, having the mentorship and having the in-classroom experience is still very valuable from people who are in the industry, who are experts at software development, and who are, you know, in teaching you intensely. And of course, when they graduate, bring the employers to them.
Right. So have you thought about running a cohort for educators? That is, teach teachers.
We get asked that.
Yeah. It's been talked about. So.
Yeah, because there is now, I think, a real thrust to want to, and a recognition of the need to integrate more of this into the formal curricula. And,
well, there's always DevLeague for that, right?
But the education system is notoriously, what can we say, recalcitrant to change, which is a pure irony of the whole thing.
Well, it's actually a big challenge. Is that in terms of educating the educators, is that you know, and really even a lot of like this hour of code kind of thing, you know, movement that's happening. And really, you know, you don't learn to code in an hour, and really, you know, the value of being able to teach somebody else is from doing it for a long time and being knowing all the things that could go wrong and keeping somebody on the right path to where they don't get frustrated. I mean, that's something we have to deal with the adults is to, like I said earlier, is keep that reward cycle going. And so if you don't know how to facilitate that makes it hard, and you only get that from experience. And generally, people that are experienced software developers, for financial reasons, aren't teaching in schools. You know, you know, so that's we don't have the solution for that right now. It's something we've talked about, but that's kind of the problem there is that is the depth of knowledge, I think, and how easy it is to transfer that, and the pay scale between the different. professions.
Yeah, well, this is super, and it's an interesting note to end on. Is this sort of ultimate challenge, and how do we wrap this back into the education system? But it's great to see you guys doing what you're doing, and really making a real impact on the workforce here. So you've been here on Likeable Science. I'm your host, Ethan Allen. With me today have been Russell and Jason from DevLeague, and we've been exploring DevLeague, all the stuff they do, and how programming and coding are taking over our world. I look forward to further conversations with you guys, and I look forward to seeing you at future Likeable Science shows. Thanks.